Over the past few years, China as a world's workshop has been craving more energy. In 2009, the country became the world's second largest net oil importer. The following year, it not only became a net importer of coal, but also surpassed the United States as the largest consumer of electricity in the world. On the one hand, the country's reliance on fossil fuels has prompted the development of alternative energies. On the other, this development has also resulted in the emergence of a number of issues. Bill Dodson, author of China Fast Forward, shares his views on the pros and cons of China's development of renewable energies and cleantech. Problems have arisen from our well-meant development of alternative energies and like the overcapacity in PV production, and also the proliferation of dams and the quality of the wind turbines. So what have gone wrong with those projects?
Governments are still learning around the world is that governments are great at setting policy, and that's what they should do. Picking industrial winners and losers, they're not so good at that. And so for the last 30 years, what seemed to work quite well here in China from a policy point of view was identifying industries that would allow people to get jobs, to develop their local communities, to raise their incomes, etc., etc., etc. Those we would call, from a foreign direct investment point of view, encouraged industries. Solar, wind, those are very sophisticated, very capital intensive industries. Basically, for these more nuanced industries, you can't use the same old models in which you direct who are going to be the industrial giants, what are going to be the industries of tomorrow. In the West, we don't even know what are the industries of tomorrow. We're just trying to go along, year by year almost, funding by funding. Part of that involves the way that companies in the West are funded, and institutions as well. Over the last 30 years, when the government has indicated a certain industry, there's a piling in of companies that jump in all at the same time, which is exactly what happened in solar, that it went from 5 years. Yeah, within 1 year, or within 5 years, 100 companies to 500, So, and wind, same sort of thing as well.
So how should the policy be made? I mean, if the past pattern does not work out anymore?
This is a number one, it's great to have policies. At least there are policies in China. In America, they're still arguing if there should be any sort of national initiatives. Also, there's a liberalization of the financial markets that needs to happen in league with government policy. And the idea of a financial system is toward the end of ensuring efficient allocation of funds. Where the funds should be going, that's where they naturally flow. As long as there are state champions, right, that are government supported and or directed, then of course the money's going to flow to them, as opposed to the little guy who has proven his technology works in the garage and now needs money in order to scale it up and apply it on a grander level.
So the clean technology does not seem so clean as it claims, and for example, like the e-bicycle uses batteries that contain lead, and also the energy-saving light bulbs and e-vehicles demands the use of rare earth materials, and the excavation of those materials can be toxic. So how to really evaluate the true cost of cleantech?
So a concept that companies in China really, really need to learn, and this is only going to happen through government policy, is the total cost of operation. And that is the total cost, the complete cost of a product from the moment it is designed, quite frankly, to the disposal of that unit. And so you're finding European policy, for instance, moving more toward ensuring that products are made for much longer than 3 to 5 years, that they do not build in obsolescence. Many of us, I think we've all at least had one laptop that mysteriously dies at the end of 3 years, almost to the day. as well as the disposal of toxic products like batteries and the like.
As is quoted in your book that China takes like another 20 years to shake off its dependence on coal. But given the worsening environment, is it possible? Is it a way to shorten that process?
Yeah, there's two things that China has done that have been very productive. One is the latest generation of coal-fired plants over the last 5 years have been the latest technologies in coal plants. So that if we compare the coal plants in China to the coal plants in America, because mind you, in America, until just a couple years ago, half of American energy came from coal-fired plants. Along those lines, what China has been very open about is accepting technologies from other countries like America that do not have the marketplace or the funding in order to really make practical the coal cleaning technologies. So there are American companies in particular here in China that have found a tremendous audience at central and local government levels in order to help them to retrofit those coal-fired plants as well.
And in 2009, China became the world's second largest net oil importer. So how will this dependence on fossil fuels will influence the country on the world stage?
It already has been. I mean, a fair amount, it could be said, of China's foreign policy involves finding countries that are willing to supply oil. And then there are, of course, coal exporters like America and Australia that export a fair amount of coal that can be burned more cleanly in Chinese coal plants. Modernization model that every country, not just China, is pursuing. And with the reality that you've already identified, that urbanization will see an increasing consumption of those energy resources, will add additional stress to international relations, so that Chinese foreign policy, I believe, will actually become more nuanced. Yeah, it will become more subtle. And I believe that the way that companies, as they move out into the world, will also become more sophisticated.